Wanted to do a breakdown here of Aaron Rodgers. I think he's one of the best in the NFL. You know, him or Tom Brady. Really take your pick. I mean, definitely in terms of release and just probably overall mechanics, I think I'd take Aaron Rodgers. I mean, he just has such a great release. Looks so clean in how he throws the football. So I thought we would go ahead and break it all down and see what makes his release so special. So. One of the things that I think is really interesting with him is he almost jumps off of the ground with that front leg, and I see it time and time again where he really creates a lot of force. You know, because usually we talk about creating force off that back leg, and he does still do that intro rotation. He does still push off that back leg, but he almost jumps off of that front leg when he's throwing, and he uses that little jump as kind of a last second finisher to get that ball out of his hands. And just what everybody says, that he just has really big hands, and so maybe he uses that to, really create force upwards, and then he just he absorbs all that force and uses his big hands where he can get on top of the ball and use that to propel forward. I know when you try to get into that top end speed, it becomes much more of a vertical action, so he's just kind of doing the same type of thing where he's creating vertical force into his throw as he's getting rid of it, and you can see it right there. Very interesting, but it's still so controlled. When he lands, it looks very good on that front leg. I mean, he has a very prototypical landing. It's just kind of that weird takeoff that he has with the front leg that I think is something to definitely take note of when watching his throw. So, I wanted to show that. Another thing, too, is wanted to show kind of that front angle, how he comes through with that arm. So he kind of lets that ball get behind his head a little bit there. And you can see that here where it doesn't get his elbow through as fast, but then really, again, uses that. And I see this a lot where they get that big anterior oblique activation here, where they use that as a big part of the throw, where they really are twisting around hard in the spine in order to generate the throw. And in order to do that, you really have to have good flexibility in the hip. So you can see how he uses his hips, he uses his spine, everything to kind of really generate this throw and really get a lot of force behind it. Just a large amount of spin in the front arm, large amount of spin in the spine, a large amount of spin in the hips, and this all goes around to make it so he can have that release that he has. I think in terms of getting that ball back behind his head, that's something that's a little bit out of the ordinary for most quarterbacks. That it's really out of the ordinary for most quarterbacks to have as quick of a release as he does. The last throw here is a deep ball. I think it's always interesting to show the deep balls here. You can see how he loads and really makes it so he has that large angle within his shoulders where he's really, he's going to throw that ball straight up. And you can see again, look at how he just barely taps that front foot on the ground. He really uses that front foot to generate force in his throw, and he's really he uses so much hips that he doesn't even get his front part of his trunk into the throw. It's just all arms and hips when he's throwing this football. Which is very interesting. I think that he uses that in order to create more height. He obviously has, I think one thing that he does is that he tests a lot of different throws. He has a lot of adaptability within his throwing style, and I think we see that where, he kind of utilizes some of the old Brett Favre, where you can throw it in a ton of different ways. He just has his own kind of mixture of doing that, and you can tell that he really tried to practice this and really got good at it by putting in his body in different angles and trying to generate force in different ways. And we know coming out of college, he had to adjust his release. And so I think by adjusting his release, he had to figure out how to use his body in different ways in order to create force. And I think one of the things that he does, again, that's really unique and something that you could take away from is that front foot and how he just taps off that front foot and utilizes that to push up into his throw. I don't necessarily think that it's something that I'll go and just start trying to teach people right away. But I do think as you start to develop and maybe have a good understanding of how your body works, it is something that you could probably try to add into your actual throwing motion, is being able to kind of create force upwards with that front leg. So Yeah, I mean his release and how his rotator cuff works and everything like that. I think it's good. Or I mean his release is exceptional, but how he uses his rotator cuff is a little bit surprising. I would think that he had a little bit more range of motion and a little bit more clean of a pattern when you actually see him throw. But when you break it down and see it slowly, you can see that it's he kind of brings the ball behind his head a little bit, which I think a lot of people within the quarterback community would agree that it's a little bit inefficient. But it seems like his ability to really use his obliques and really rotate hard in his spine and his hips really works out for him. So. Obviously, I mean, I think that nobody really has a better release than him. So, it's not all wrong, that's for sure. So, yeah, I wanted to show Aaron Rodgers. I think that it's a, he's a really interesting mechanics-wise. I think that really seeing it slowly can help out quarterbacks and trying to develop their own, unique style. And I think what's most important here is that everybody is going to have their own unique style. There's not one correct way in throwing a football. I think everybody has a specific way that is correct for them to throw the football, and that's what we try to do at the PLC. Is we try to connect you to your individual correct way to throw the football. And again, check out our membership, check out all the things that we have online, all our content. We also do a remote breakdown where you can send in your video to us. We'll break it down, we'll get information on it, we'll be able to get kinematics and really show you what it is that you can work on as a quarterback. Really a great feature. So that would be a really cool thing to do for any aspiring quarterbacks that are really trying to get better mechanics. Thanks again for watching these videos, and we will see you soon.